Today we're going after the 3 landmines to avoid when it comes to setting goals if you're in a relationship. And I have my wife, my high school sweetheart of 23 years, Ashley, with me. Thanks for being on the show. And here's why this is important. Have you ever had it to where it felt like you and your spouse were on 2 separate pages? Maybe not even on 2 separate pages. It felt like you guys were reading out of 2 separate books. Well, I understand that. We understand that. That's why we want to unpack these 3 things that have been helpful, landmines to avoid when it comes to setting goals together. And the first one is going to be this idea that we're almost like we're enemies, where you have your ideas and I have mine and they're opposed to each other.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start out. One that stands out to me is, since I was a little girl, I always wanted a house.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted it to be in the country because that's where I grew up, in the country.
Let's pause right there. She grew up, she wants this house in the country, and I'm from Seattle. I'm a city guy. You can already see where this is going right now. Go ahead.
Opposites attract. Well, I always wanted that for my kids, that freedom to just roam and explore nature and not have a helicopter mom. Well, we lived in a duplex for 8 years in Belton, and I felt isolated with my kids. If they wanted to go outside, I needed to be that helicopter mom. It was hard to go out front because there was usually kids with rap music, and when I mean rap music, because we listen to rap music.
We could get down with some Lecrae at the gym, 100%. Right.
Well, this was rap with cuss words and not good lyrics.
Right.
So I felt trapped, and then we'd go outside in the back, and then all these kids would come from the neighborhood. And so I just didn't have that alone time with my kids outside. And if they wanted to go outside, I felt like I always had to be with them. So I just wanted a home where my kids could roam free, and I could be in the house if I needed to be. You know, I didn't have to be hovering over them. So
it's hard not to hover over your kids, though, when you only have 980 square feet.
Right, yeah.
Family of 5.
Yeah.
Carry on.
It was 2 bedrooms.
Right.
2-bedroom duplex. The 5
One
of
bath.
us. We always had someone staying with us or taken care of or something. But it worked. It worked out. I made it a home. Oh, I'll go back to where we were enemies. I felt like for a moment. I had these big dreams of this house, and I wanted out of the duplex. I wanted a house. And I wanted to start taking steps towards a house.
Right.
And I went to Chris, right, and I was telling you about how we need to take steps to get a house. And you're a realtor, you're doing great being a realtor. You're doing good at your business. And here we are still at this duplex. And it started getting embarrassing going to people. I know you had your moments. I had my moments where people be like, well, where do you live?
Sure.
And they expect to see this beautiful home because you're a realtor.
Yeah.
And here we are in this duplex.
Well, we had a beautiful home on the inside, going by the quality features, and yet judging by the outside, it didn't line up with somebody that was having success in real estate, selling millions of dollars in real estate year after year, especially 7 years into my career. Yeah.
Right. And so I brought to you what I dreamed of and what I wanted for our family. And I wanted to start taking steps. And I knew we had a lot of debt on our shoulders. And I just wanted to start snowballing, like David Ramsey says, start small and then get to the bigger and bigger chunks of debt. Oh, sorry.
You're good.
And so I brought it to you, and you said, what? Do you remember what you said?
You need to be content.
Yeah.
With what we have.
Content.
Right.
Well, I wasn't happy with that.
Yeah.
So, but I took it to God. A lot of times, what Chris says, if I don't agree with it or it upsets me and I can't get through to him, I go to God. Because I know that God knows you better than I know you, and he can speak to you better than I can speak to you sometimes. And you listen to him more than you do me sometimes. So anyways, I took it to God, and I was reflecting, am I content? Am I discontent? Like, show me, God, if I am not content. And so I started, I talked about the kids in the neighborhood and how
Mhm.
frustrated I was with them. And I started asking God to show me them through his eyes. And so that's when, all these kids come to our house
Right.
morning and night. We
Yeah.
even got a close sign, open, closed.
On our front door. So they would,
The back door.
like it was 7-Eleven.
The back door.
Right.
Even if it said closed, they didn't care.
Right.
They'd come to the front door, like, sorry, my kids can't play today.
Yeah.
They'd go to the back door. They didn't care. They went to the back door. Knock, knock, knock. I'm like, dang.
Remember they'd be peeking in
They
the.
would be peeking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
They'd still you'd open the curtains, they're just standing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were very, very persistent. So God, I felt like, in my spirit, told me to start a ministry. And when I say that, because some people will be like, what do you mean God told you? It's a thought. It's just a thought that I couldn't muster up myself. Like, it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that is a good idea. And I know that was not my idea.
Yeah.
So what I decided to do with my kids is, since these kids are already coming to our house, go ahead and start a ministry. So every Wednesday evening, I bought this big table on our marketplace. I don't even know if we had marketplace back then.
I'm not sure. You found it somewhere.
I found it somewhere
Yeah.
used. And you can put tons of noodles in it. One time we put a bunch of
Shaving cream.
and the kids got it.
Yeah.
We got shaving cream everywhere. We had a good time. Well, before they could have a good time with whatever activity I had, I had a Bible study.
You made them do a Bible study.
I had a
right.
Bible study, and it was beautiful because these kids were opening up to me that
Oh, yeah.
their lives were hard.
One little boy, you helped him write a note to his dad. I'm not going to say his name,
His
and
dad,
yet,
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
His dad was in
prison.
Right.
Right.
And I
this
didn't know that.
6, 7, 8-year-old little boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he wrote a note to his dad in prison, and he told me about his troubles. And my kids were able to hear this too. And our kids were praying for these kids. And then we would have these kids pray out loud to God. And it was a beautiful season of our lives. And I started seeing those kids differently. I started seeing them not as annoying anymore.
Right.
I saw them as my ministry. I saw them as God saw them.
Your perspective changed.
So I started changing things to be more content to where I am, but that didn't mean I couldn't dream or pray big.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did is I just asked God to change Chris's heart and give him a drive to want a house like I did. And so I took all our bills, all our debt, and where I got this idea was at a conference, some women's conference I went to. And I was by myself. I think it was nap time for Matthew. I laid all the bills, all our debt on the floor, and I prayed over them. And that didn't mean like I just wanted God to just wipe them out and we do nothing. I would pray over them, and I pray over Chris's success in his business.
Yeah.
And that God would bring people to him with business so that we could have that money to pay the debt.
That's good.
And it was just, there were times where you come home because you started seeing a pattern, and you're like, did you pray today? Because this happened.
Right.
Did you pray today? Because this happened. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, the backstory is because it's like, okay, I'm having success in real estate, selling homes year after year. What's the problem there? Because we're living in this tiny duplex. My wife has this vision, and I shot her down. By the way, the principle I want to highlight is the landmine number one to avoid is this idea that you and your spouse are enemies. You're not enemies. You're partners, right? You're better together, and you're on the same team. So if you're at a place, maybe your desires are different, or you just have different opinions, just remember that fundamentally you are on the same team. You're for each other, not against each other. Sometimes it's easy to lose track of that.
Yeah, because I forget. I forget that
I have to remind myself too. Right.
Because sometimes
it doesn't feel like it.
No.
100%.
Like my enemy.
So when it comes to selling real estate, the challenge is that I couldn't out-earn poor spending habits. I can't out-earn poor spending habits. So the thing that I had to learn did not have to do with me getting more commission checks. I had to learn some lessons to grow and mature on the inside when it came to being a good steward of what I was entrusted with.
Yeah.
So she would be at home praying. Then I'd be doing the right activities to gain business and serve people and therefore earn revenue in my business. And so as she started praying and I started rolling up my sleeves, getting to work, that allowed us, because she laid out the bills. Now, I wish it was one of those stories where fire came down from heaven and consumed the debt on the floor, and then we got the letter saying it's been paid off. Congratulations. That's not how it happened.
Yeah.
I served people in the marketplace. Therefore, I earned the right to go to Bank of America, my bank, get certified funds to take down to the IRS building in Kansas City and hand them over the thousands and thousands of dollars that I owed them. So I had to put in the work, and therefore it did position us, thanks to Todd Branson, my money man. He helped me get untangled from the debt and the mess that was causing me and my family not to be able to own a home, even though I was helping, dozens, if not hundreds at this point, of people have home ownership. We still didn't own a home. So that's when things started to change.
Yeah. And looking back now, I know that belief that he said is you should just be content. Now I'm just like, get to the root of that comment, and it was really you were scared.
Well, yeah, it was insecurity.
Scared, you felt weighed down, you felt hopeless.
Right.
You just felt overwhelmed, and you didn't know where to start.
It reminds me of this idea of getting married. Right. I want to digress. And yet I would say that marriage is just a piece of paper, meaning I would say something to discredit the significance of it. And so it reminds me when you made the comment about you desire to have a house in the country, and I said, hey, be content with the duplex. I was shooting that down, just like I would disqualify marriage by saying it was a piece of paper. I would try to shoot down what it is you were saying in order to feel better about not having a home for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, I think looking back, like it was clear a defense mechanism that I had, and it was a way of trying to,
Buy time.
I guess so. Yeah. I just felt insecure, inadequate. I was, working hard, and feeling like I was running behind and just feeling like a failure as a husband and provider. So I was already aware of that. And yet I just wasn't at a spot where I was willing to do the work, meaning change, become the type of person who can do the thing. I wasn't willing to do the deep work, because what's on the inside always shows up on the outside. Right. And so it took, I'm thankful for your patience, and yet it didn't happen overnight.
Right. So also at that time, not only praying over the bills, I decided I would fast. And what I mean by fasting is at that time, in that season, I fasted social media, which I felt like I was on a lot. And so I needed to fast that, detox from it.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I fast, it's food. But I didn't know how long it would take for us to get our house, so I was willing to just fast social media.
Yeah.
Which was great. And what I mean by fasting is I give up something that I enjoy and for God, in order to have a relationship, not a relationship with God, but closer relationship with God, and more in the Word, more God than that thing. Normally, pick up your phone, go on social media. Instead, I pray.
You're being more intentional with your time. Yeah.
Right. And so I remember fasting. It only took about 3 months, and we got our house.
Right. Yeah. Things started to happen quick.
Yeah.
And I started to, without getting into the details, I took a class that was called BOLD, Business Objective, A Life by Design. And it challenged me. It challenged me in many ways. And one of the exercises that I had in this class to do, not jumping jack exercises, and yet an exercise it's called your financial thermostat, where I positioned myself to be in a room full of people that were intentional about thinking bigger, thinking beyond where they were at currently, and thinking more long-term and dreaming again. And so that was something the thing I want to highlight is that the people we choose to surround ourselves with absolutely matter. Right. So diving into landmine number 2 to avoid, the first one is this idea that you're enemies. Nope, you're not enemies. You're on the same team. Landmine number 2 is that it either has to be her goal of living in the country or my goal of living in the city. And because I didn't always desire to have acreage, and yet we're talking to you from in the backyard of the home on 5 acres that we bought in 2017. And so I'm not going to say that you won with that, meaning that I lost, because it's been a win-win. We both have win. I'll be the first to say that living on acreage has been one of the biggest blessings that we've been able to provide to our family, meaning that our son, like, he has creeks outside and trees and nature. He's into hunting and archery and fishing and all those things. And so the thing I want to highlight is that if you and your spouse are, number one, you're on the same team. Number two, it doesn't have to be your goal or her goal. Figure out what your goals are together.
Right.
Yeah. Because my number two to avoid is the idea that it's either your goals or my goals, your spouse's goals or your goals. I want to encourage you to have a both and approach. So when it comes to the house story, eventually that became a goal instead of you having a goal of home ownership. And I said, hey, be content. Eventually it became our goal together. And I'll tell you what, I think that's when the magic happens. When we figure out what it is that we desire together, that's when it's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Anything you'd like to unpack on that one?
No, because, well, I know when you finally get on the same page as me. So sometimes we feel like two different books.
Right.
When you finally got on the same page, usually I'm ahead
Yeah.
on the page and you're back.
Well, you'd have to know some of my background because we moved around a lot, right? Shout out to Mom. We moved a lot. We moved over 36 times, not counting the same place twice. And
By the age
I thought
15?
I was doing well, even though we lived in a duplex. And it's not a matter of, please don't hear that you're doing better if you own a home, making a mortgage payment than if you live in a duplex. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
My point is that I shot down my wife who had vision for home ownership, telling her to be content. And really, from my perspective, I was so focused on just doing better than my upbringing, where we moved so much. I thought, to me, it felt like a win that I was providing a home in the same address year after year for my family. And I'm thankful for your patience, because I did too want to have home ownership. I just had to become the type of person who could own a home by getting my ducks in a row, taking care of some things financially and forming some new habits.
Yeah. And it feels good. It feels good when you're on the same page, doing the same thing,
Right.
working towards the same thing.
Yeah, that's where the magic happens.
I really like that saying when I was working with you. Remember what that saying said on the wall that I bought?
Which one's that?
It said,
Don't complain about the harvest if you're
no,
not that one. Okay.
No, mine. The one I bought for my little space.
What did your space say?
It said, if you want to go fast,
Yeah.
go alone. If you want to go together, if you want to go further, go together.
Yeah. Say that again.
If you want to go fast, go alone.
Yeah.
If you want to go further, go together.
Okay, that's good. That's solid.
Yeah.
Yep. And the last line, landmine, that I just want to just say it is a landmine, be aware of it, is don't get so hung up on this year's goals, narrowing your focus down to just this month or this year. Think bigger than that. With your spouse or significant other, if you could find a way to dream about the future, meaning 5 or 10 years out, especially if we're going through a storm right now, this week, this month, this year, man, it does me a lot of good to think about 5 or 10 years from the future. It could pull me out of whatever chaos is here and now and cause me to dream again. And for me, that does my heart and soul some good.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have a goal to work towards.
Yeah. And that's something that
helps you.
I feel like I've been able to help you with that one, because one of the things that we've done that we make it a point to do is to write out about once a year for the past few years, probably 5 or 6 years at this point, something like that, where we write out intentionally the life that we desire 10 years from now. Sometimes 10 years feels like a whole lifetime away, because I feel like I'm a different person today than even yesterday. So 10 years seems so far out, but
And
I think
our desires change.
Yeah, that's true, because we change. Everything changes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that what would you like to say for somebody that says, you know what, I feel stuck right now, I'm doing good to focus on today, this week, or this year? What would you say to encourage or challenge them to think about further, more years out?
Come to our workshop.
Oh, that's good. Hey, shout out. Let's go. I like that. Yeah. Good call.
Our workshop.
Yeah.
'Cause we've been there. We've been there. We felt defeated, overwhelmed. All the words I was describing earlier when you said
Right.
just be content.
Yep.
You know, we've been there.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that you're God's child, and your God, your Father in heaven, wants to give good gifts.
Yeah.
And when I think of being a parent, I want to give my kids good gifts.
100%.
Right? We do.
Right.
And when I think about contentment, when my kids aren't happy with what I've already provided them, if they're not taking care of what I already provided for them, why would I get them bigger and better things? You know, I want them to appreciate what I have given them.
Right.
Right. And I feel like that's what God has done with us.
Yeah.
And we got our house just in time, because then we started appreciating what we did have.
Yeah.
But also still praying and believing for bigger and better things.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would just encourage you that God cares about our desires, and he listens to our prayers, and he will work everything out at just the right time.
Right.
Because if we would have got our house when we wanted our house, we wouldn't have learned lessons.
Yeah.
You know?
Just wouldn't have been ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have.
Yeah, I would agree.
So I think it came just at the right time.
Yeah.
So what was your question? Sorry.
I
Did
don't even
answer
remember.
it?
Yeah, you did. You did a great job. You know, the thing I'm reminded of, no one succeeds alone. When it came to getting unstuck financially, like I leaned in to a local lender. His name's Todd Branson.
Yeah.
He's not
Miracle
sponsoring this video, and yet shout out to Todd. The point is, for me, it was a humbling experience, meaning to fill out the credit application and for him to see exactly where I was at. I had to swallow some pride in order to do that. And yet, looking back, that was one of the big steps of us being able to get in a position to buy a home, is just laying it out there, full transparency to another grown man.
Yeah.
And so I would say that if you feel stuck, you know, who are you missing? Is it a mentor? Is it friendship? Is it a coach? Who are you missing? Because no one succeeds alone. We don't have an incredible marriage by figuring out ourselves. No, that's not how it works. You're not going to have a great business by doing it all yourself.
Yeah. Don't isolate yourself.
Yeah.
And hide in the dark and feel like you have to sit in that shame.
Yeah.
You know, bring it out into the light. Because when you brought it out into the light and nobody was like, oh my gosh, you know, they were just like, okay, let's do this.
Sure.
You're like, wow, it's not that bad.
Yeah, that's right.
And it felt good.
Yeah.
To just bring it forth to somebody and get help. Right?
Absolutely.
Instead of just living with it on your own.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good call on
And
that.
feeling shameful about it all.
Yeah. So my wife mentioned this workshop on the 24th of October. Her and I are doing an in-person workshop in Kansas City, small group meeting, about 20 people, where we're going to come along your side and we're going to have a conversation together about your values, help you define and gain clarity what your values are. Number 2, we're going to help you have a strategic 10-year plan for you and your household. And then number 3, we're going to take that 10-year plan and narrow it all the way down to 2025. So for you and your household, you know how to win together in 2025. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want to give you an opportunity to join us. And so I'm glad you bring that up. We have it written out here on the script. I'm just kidding. There's no script.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
That's right. Yep.
And what would you tell? So is this only for spouses?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, you were saying families. So
Yeah.
want you
Well,
to
I was
share.
thinking husbands and wife, and yet if somebody desires a husband or desires wife, perhaps they could show up and maybe we could partner up together, and you never know. It could be a match made in heaven.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Our event's called Life by Design, helping you take a next step to be intentional about creating the life that you desire together. I'm pumped for
what
that.
would you say because you said a lot of women are signing up. and
Yeah,
their
that's it. Us
husbands-
dudes, guys. You need to step up. We need to step up. 100% of the people who have signed up so far have been ladies. I'm thankful, and yet, dudes, let's stand up and be the leader that I know you can be, and lead our families well by being intentional to have a conversation about the life that we desire with our spouse someday in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just observation. I'm not making anything of it, and yet I think there's opportunity
Yeah.
for us
Yeah,
guys to.
it's just observation.
Yeah.
And I know not everybody's wired like you. They don't
Thank God.
enjoy stuff like this. I'm kind of on the guy side. Like, I don't enjoy doing that. But once I do it, I'm like, okay,
It's
this
some
is
work.
good.
Yeah.
And it's like our house, you
Mhm.
know. you said when you went to Bold, you're
Mhm.
like, come on, I would need to know your dreams, right?
Yeah, that's a
And
class I took. Bold, Business Objective of Life by Design.
if you mentioned it earlier. But he was wanting me to be specific on what I wanted. And so I put a blue house, white tin roof,
Yeah,
flagpole, a creek, acreage, um, ranch house,
right.
open floor plan.
Yep.
Got it all. Got it
Yeah.
all.
Yep.
Wasn't even on the market. That's a whole nother story.
Right.
So I share all that because it's really neat to look back because I still have the papers of when the kids and I wrote down what our dream home would be like.
Yeah.
And so I share that because even though I dragged my feet about doing it, it's really neat to look back and see how far we've came and, the prayers that have been answered.
Right. Well, the Bible does say write it down and make it plain so anybody who reads it can run with it. And I would agree. Looking back on whether it's like with journals, that's one of the. I know my stack of old journals might drive you wild, and yet I love looking back and just reading where I was at during that time.
Yeah, I think it's
And
great.
then looking back to see how God provided and how God made a way where there seemed to be no way. It's pretty special looking back. Because going through challenging times, as you know, like it's so challenging.
And you think, oh, I'll always remember this.
Right.
You don't. You forget.
Yeah, it's easy
So
to lose
so
track of the
good to
details.
know
Yeah,
and
exactly.
see how far you come.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. So the 3 landmines to recap to avoid. 3 landmines to avoid when it comes to setting goals if you're in a relationship. Landmine number 1 is that don't buy into the lie that you're enemies. Nope. You're actually on the same team. You're for each other, not against each other. Number 2, it's not your goals versus your spouse's goals. Dream together and figure out where that overlaps and figure out where the commonality is and go to work to make that happen. And number 3 is that don't get so hung up on just thinking about this year. Go further out. Think about some point in the future. Think about 5 or 10 years from now. That way you could make sure that what you're doing this year is in alignment to get you and your spouse where you desire to be someday in the future.
That's good.
That's good. Well, good work today.
That's good.
Nice job.